If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Knock, knock. Yes, it's me. I'm coming for my second visit to your houses. I hope you've enjoyed the first one. Those of you who haven't seen my first visit, let me just introduce very quickly. I'm Sarie van Niekerk, and I was a member of the first group of police women ever who were trained in the police college in Pretoria, and that was in 1972. All right, now we can go on. Last time I took you through a quick trip through my career. Just touch there, touch here, touch there, touch here. Now, this time, I want to go into more detail, let you know a bit more what we did and what the police are, and what the police mean to the women police. So let's go back to the college. I've told you what we did, all the subjects I did, but let me tell you about what we did, which we wasn't supposed to do, and that was leaving the college without permission. Most of us that was in the group was at a stage in a boarding school. I know I'm one of them. So we know exactly what to do. It wasn't long before we found a backside dirt little road leading out of the college to the then East School, and from East School with a long road down to the main road where we normally organized for somebody to pick us up. And that happened so often, I can't even tell you. But we were always lucky, except on one occasion, that's Anneke, my friend, when we came back, well, actually, we were even, not even started with what we were supposed to do. We were caught, but a bit later of that. So as a month goes on, we started preparing for our first passing out parade. Yes, I say passing out first because we were the lucky group that had two passing out parades. The first one was on the college ground with the men, and it was the first time ever that there were women in the passing out parades. And people came from all over, parents, friends, visitors, guests of honor, and all the generals. And for the first time, we had on our new brand, fantastic uniforms. I must tell you, to be on that parade ground, I can't tell you what it meant to me. I felt like a queen in waiting. I just waited for my crown to be dropped on my head. But I had a beautiful hat on, so I took that as my crown. And before we went onto the parade ground, Javine Buerta and Captain Botbot, who was our company commander, they said to us, don't tip, don't fall down. You have to stand. It's going to be a long, stretched hours, but please don't fall. And then Davine gave us an idea, or whatever you want to call it, to buy Zambic ointments and then rub our feet with Zambic before we put on our stockings and our shoes. And then she told us, every now and then just go on your toes and back on your feet. And just, they said because there was a betting on that none of the women is going to collapse. We will all stand right through the parade. There was a couple of men that fall down halfway next to us, but we stood our stood. We promised them, and we came out gloriously. Okay, then this is a stage where everybody was sent out to their stations, except the 10, as I told you before, ladies that stayed behind for training in the security branch, of which I was one. We've learned so much in that month. I don't know how we put everything in our heads, how we got through everything, but I've heard of persons and names and organizations which I've never heard about before that time. Well, I can't really go into exact training, but let me just tell you, it was fantastic. And then I went back to the security branch. And one of the first, we each had an officer with us for a period of training. And I was lucky to have one of the best there, Nati van Rensburg. What a beautiful old man. He knew the security branch in and out. And then they decided that it's time for us to go out on our own. So Leslie, Lorette, the girl that I worked together there, and myself, we got the task to follow a German tourist from the airport to wherever he goes, because the security branch had information that German tourist is not really a tourist, and that he's in South Africa for much more than tourism. Well, we couldn't miss the guy who had a good description of him, a photo of him. So we wait for him to get into the bus to see where he was going to sit. And we got in the bus and we sat in the row right behind him. And not very far after we left the airport, I knocked him on the shoulder and I pat him on the shoulder. I said, "Oh, sorry, excuse me." Those days I could speak a little bit of German. Have you got a lighter for me, please? And he was a real gentleman. Gave me his lighter. Not that I was really a smoker, but I did smoke occasionally. So we started chatting, and by the time that we got off the bus in Johannesburg, we were sort of chatting friends, if I could call it that way. We saw into which hotel he was registered, and we went to our office, and through the trip, we heard places that he wanted to go and see. So we made sure the next morning that we are in the vicinity. We was going, we followed him the whole day, but he never did anything wrong. I mean, he had breakfast, he had lunch, he visited museums, he visited parks, he just sat in the park on a bench and drink cold drink. And he never ever, in that whole time, he was there for 4 days, but he never met anybody that we could see. So we decided that he is clean. What I did after he left, we went to the hotel management and we asked whether he made any calls. Nothing. Whether he received any visitors. Nothing. So the poor man really only was a tourist. That's that. And he left South Africa and we went back to our, but it was an experience, I must say. I mean, it was the first time ever we did something like that. It was a great experience, actually. We were joking about it. And so we just went on with our daily tasks from side to side, and this small here, a small thing, and there, a small thing. And then one day, Nati said to me, please come with me. I need you to help me with a job. And I still said, not me. I'm one of your juniors. I said, but I need a woman. So we went out and we picked up Winnie Mandela, Nelson Mandela's wife, who was like a tiger those days for her mouth. And she could fight. You've never heard anything like that. I remember that day she was dressed all in yellow, bright yellow from her head to toes. Picked her up. She broke her penalties, house rules, that she wasn't supposed to leave the house to meet certain persons, which she broke. So and when we got in the lift at John Foster Square, she gave me one look up and down, and she said to Nati, who's this? Nati told her who I am and what we're doing, and that they are now women in the police. And she says, look, we're right in the eyes. She says to me, oh, that's fine. It's just one more person who's going. We're going to threat. We will cut the day when the ANC take over the country. Could imagine what I got a shock of my life. I said to Renate afterwards, does she really mean it? Is it? I think she do. But I think if it ever happens, and by the time they do take over, she's forgotten what she said to you. So we worked there for 4 months. And in that time, it was the first, what everybody thought, the first domestic terrorism, we called it Fox Street. We spent the whole night and half of the day, and we couldn't get the persons inside the building to communicate with us or to give them over, to surrender. And the next morning, General van der Berg, he came, he was a tall man, a straighter man, and he spoke to them, and then eventually they surrender. And if everything went flat, like a balloon who just goes flat. It wasn't terrorism. It was just two brothers who had an office there, and they had a big fight on how to run the company. Which they kept the security police and hundreds of other police's streets were blocked off for everything, going for more than 18 hours. But anyway, luckily, it wasn't that. And then I decided that I think I've had enough of security. It's time for me to learn something else. I need to experience other departments of the police force. I didn't go to the police just to be in one department for the rest of my career. So out of the blue, because I didn't even know exactly where Boksburg were, I asked for a transfer to Boksburg. And they still said to me, but which branch of Boksburg? I said, I don't care, just Boksburg. So I end up in Boksburg in a uniform, inquiries. This is where we investigated accidents and all that sorts of things, which was okay. It was interesting because to me it was something else that I've never done. I mean, how to uh, reconstruct a accident, how exactly to measure accident from what point to what point, and you've got to know what you do, otherwise you can mess up the whole scene. And but while I was there, then came 16 July 1976, the most famous Soweto riots. And they pulled as much as possible persons from the offices into the radio control room, where, well, that was really the heartbeat of everything, because every little thing that happened, every person that needs something goes to the radio control room. Sometimes we had to decide it for them what would be the next step if they need help urgently. It was up to us in the control room to get that necessary help for them. And we were working 2 shifts, only 2 12-hour shifts. The one from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, and then the night shift, which I was on, from 6 to 6 for 6 weeks without a break. I tell you, some mornings some nights when it was time for me to go to work, I wish I could just die. I was so tired by then. But I had to. It was winter. It was freezing cold. It was one of the coldest winters that the area had. And, those days, there wasn't pants with our uniforms. Not at all. It was just stockings, shoes. But we did our work. And then during that time, my father, dear old father, and this one is for you, he had a heart attack, very serious heart attack. And he was in the ICU in the then Petersburg, which is now Polokwane Hospital. And there wasn't much hope for him. So my mother called all of us and said, look, you must come. I left the furthest away. The others was just around in the area. So what I did the first couple of days after he was admitted to hospital, when my shift was over at 6 o'clock, I just changed the attestation from uniform to private clothes, got in my car, drove out to Petersburg, spent a couple of hours with my father, and drive back to be back at the radio control at 6 at night. Luckily, he pulled through, and then it saves me all later, the last part of his illness. It wasn't necessary for me to go there every day anymore. But it was a hard time, but, I enjoyed it. There, I really felt the pulse of the police, the speed and the time in which the decisions had to be taken. It was just something else. There was no time to think on your feet. You just take a decision. Every morning, the men, before they go back to Soweto, they came into the control room and they told us exactly what's happened the previous day. which I'm not going into in this chat. But all I know is that Soweto people at one stage said the police are the best shots ever, but they can't count. So I understood that the more people died there than what we giving out the officials figures. But that put aside, we all got through Soweto riots. Although it spread to the rest of the country, we got through it. And I still went on there. I enjoyed it. Radio control, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And there was one constable there. Every night she said to me, she doesn't feel well. I said, well, what's wrong? She said, no, she don't know, but she's nauseous and she's got a headache. I said, you used to have headache pills, just take it. We can't afford to not have you there because we were just skeleton staff anyway. And then one night she really became ill. She started crying and she says she's got so much pain. I thought to me, well, being in charge of the shift, I have to take the decision. So I decided to phone the district surgeon and ask him to come and have a look at the girl. When he came out of the room after talking to her and investigating, he said to me, you know what? I thought you would notice it earlier on. I said, notice what? He said, she's pregnant, my dear. I said, well, how far? He said, 5 months. I said, sorry, maybe I'm stupid, maybe I didn't look, but I didn't see any signs of her being pregnant. Of course, in those days, being pregnant, being unmarried, that meant the end of your career. So the poor old constable just had to leave the police force. And then after a couple of months, I said to them, I think I need to go to the charge office. I need that experience too. Because today when I make the final decision on my career in the police, I must have as much knowledge of all the different departments as possible. I went into the charge office. At first, it was really paperwork. The senior warrant officer, all the paperwork was given to me. I was a new kid on the block, and I was looking for somebody to do all the paperwork, which was interesting, gave me another view. Till one day he said to me, well, I think I'm ready to do the counter. Counter means I'm ready to take people when they came in with whatever they want to do. I'm ready to take their first statements. Now, let me put you in the picture. Boksburg has got a colored township, I would say about 6 kilometers from the police station. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but in most of the colored townships, definitely in Reiger Park, Friday night was drinking night. That was just Friday night, everybody was drinking. You can imagine by midnight what it was looking in that place. And they pour into the station. And they laid charges, all kinds of charges, domestic violence, this and that. Even that the man was too friendly with the neighbor's wife, and we had to take the stories. They're laying charges, so we had to take the information. But most of the times, I would say 90, 90, maybe even more, 90%, especially the women who laid charges against their men on Friday night. On Monday morning, they would come in and withdraw all those charges. Now, we were just very angry with them, but, we can't see them in jail because who's going to look after our kids? Where's money going to come from for our kids? Oh. But one Friday night, a guy walked into the charge office and he stood in front of me at the counter. He said, lady, I would like to lay a charge against, and he mentioned the name against you. I said, yes, sir, what's the problem? Because visually there was nothing that I could see the way he was standing in front of me. There was absolutely no signs of attack or what, because he said that he wanted to lay charge of attack. The guys attacked him. And I started opening the dossier. And I said, but sir, where did he attack you? How did he attack you? He turned around and there's a big long knife in his back. I said, what? I said, yes, he stabbed me with a knife. Now, he walked all that way from Reiger Park. He walked to the police station with a knife in his back. Once again, I had to phone the district surgeon to come out to see what it is. And he said, oh no, you please don't take that knife out, because if you take that knife out, then he's going to die. Because the knife in his back stopped bleeding. And if you take it out, then it's going to start bleeding. So he was taken to hospital by ambulance. And a couple of days later, he walked into the charge office. He said, I just want to thank you, but by the way, can you withdraw that case that I wrote? I said, good heavens, the guy nearly killed you. He stabbed you with a knife. I said, it doesn't matter. It's my drinking bell. We're friends. I can't see him get charged for attempted murder. I said, fine, that's your choice. But that's how it went. Every weekend and every Monday morning that we reached a stage we didn't even take we didn't even make dossiers, open dossiers on a Friday night. We made notes in a book, and then Monday morning when they come, we just threw the little notes away because we knew they're not going to go on with it. Many strange things happened while I was working in the charge office. I met some beautiful people. I met some friends there with whom I'm friends till this day. I met one of my best friends there. I'll tell you more about this later, but the day when I got married, I got dressed at her house. So yeah, the time in the charge office, to me, it was a very fruitful time. I learned a lot. I learned about different crimes, which maybe I didn't always think is a crime. And then I decided it's time for me to go further. So I said to the commander, I would like to apply for a position at the detectives. And it just so happened that there was an opening at the detectives those days. And the commander of the detectives, the then Captain Bill Smith, Bill, this is for you. Thank you for taking me in. And I remember there was one of his officers, when I wrote out my first book notices, or when I wrote up my dossier, the guy said to me, wow, she's even got a beautiful handwriting. Well, maybe I had at that time, but by the time I left the police, there was nothing left of my handwriting because there wasn't time for beautiful write something in your best handwriting, especially if you taking declarations. There was no time for neat. You just have to write as fast as you could so that anybody else can read it. At the detectives, they gave me a colored, those days he was a warrant officer, to be my monitor on Wimpy. It was Warrant Officer Morden, whatever we called him Wimpy. And I tell you, what Wimpy didn't know about detective work wasn't necessary to know. He knew everything, and he had all the time in the world to help me. Wimpy concentrated on gang busters, businesses and gang crimes in Reigerpark. So Wimpy took me into places in Reigerpark where I'm sure few people before me went in there. I was scared. I was really scared. These gang leaders, they've all got basements in their houses where their head offices were. And it's not easy to get into those places. But Wimpy just had that thing. Maybe they were scared of him. Not maybe, I think they were, because he locked them up like anything. And I tell you, Wimpy cleared out Reigerpark from gangs like nobody before him. Now, let me put you in the picture of Reigerpark. It's a colored community, but it's a very, very poor community. There's no jobs in Reigerpark. They have to travel outside the boundaries of Reigerpark to get a job. And I felt as if they were afraid leaving the boundaries of Reigerpark. That Wimpy and a few other community leaders, they, especially just before the matric exams, they went from school to school and they got the names of people that could be possible university material. And then they got bursary forms from companies, and they let those people, they go to their houses and they help them to complete those burst applications. And they even go and hand in those birth applications at the big firms, just to try and lift up the community. But it didn't help. And besides, I said they were so poor. There wasn't money, So it wasn't very long before youngsters turned to drugs. I mean, drugs is easy money. I saw the drug lords living in the big palaces, and driving these smart cars, wearing nice shiny shoes and beautiful colored suits. To a youngster, that's an attraction. That's what every young boy especially want. And that's what the gangsters know. So they chose those boys and they offer them jobs. Okay. When they first offer them the jobs, what the kids didn't know was that they would become drug couriers. And it made big money for the kids. I mean, they offered them 1,500 up to 2,000 rand for one delivery. What kid is going to say no for that if you live in one of the poorest townships in the area? But unfortunately, it was a kids that was called. And they were too scared to give the name of the drug lord. Most of the times they didn't even know for who they were. There was always a middle person, or by phone, just get instructions at such and such a place. You will find such and such a parcel, and go and pick it up, and then you will find a parcel. And then they found an envelope with the money, and just deliver the drugs to the address on it, and the transaction is closed till the next one. So at a stage, it ends up that a lot of these youngsters was put behind bars until things got too warm for the drug lords, and then they sort of went underground for a very long time. And then the day came that Wimpy said to me, "You think I'm ready to go out on my own?" I'll never forget my first investigation as a detective. Shame. It was an old couple who lived on a 5-acre plot not very far from the police station, who was attacked during night. Their feet were bound, their hands were bound, their mouths, they had silver plaster over their mouths. And the poor old couple, which was both deep in their 80s, there they were lying, the night, cold winter's night, till the next morning, when the man who helped them with sheep, because they had a couple of sheep that they were farming and selling for an income. So the guy who come and do the sheep, he didn't see one of them, and then he noticed one door is open, or slightly open. So he decided to go in, and maybe luckily he found the old couple in time to save them. And that was my first. But I feel so sorry for that old couple, that it was so difficult to take this statement, because especially the old lady, she was crying constantly. And I must say, it took a lot of me not to cry with them. But I felt very, very sorry for them. And I investigated the case. And then I arrested the guy who was responsible for, they stole some money, which they had in the house, money that they sold sheep the previous day. And they stole a couple of sheep. After the guy was found guilty and sent to prison, one day there came a large packet for me in my office, and then the detectives, I think you can guess what was inside that packet. Yes, you guessed correct. A sheep, nicely slaughtered, nicely cut up into pieces, nicely packed into plastic bags. And when I told the old man, I really appreciate it, but I'm sorry, I can't take it. He said, please, please. I said, I'm really sorry. I said, but I'll tell you what I do. You can take this to this church and donate it to the church, because the church had the feeding scheme. I said, donate it to the church on my behalf. And that made him happy. He was really, really happy. So it got closer to the end of the year, 1972. And it's time for us to head back to the college. Yes, you heard me right. We all went back to the college in November of 1972 for our second passing out parade. I mean, all we did in the college was training, 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 and training, day in and day out, from early morning till late afternoon. We were really tired at the end of every day, because they've decided not to take in a second group for the 72. Normally the police takes two groups, a January group and a July group of students, which they didn't do in 72. As you know, there's a lot of people that didn't want us there. There's a lot of people who said we wouldn't succeed. And maybe that's the reason that they didn't take in a second group. But we and was there that accept us. And then there is the big brass decided that would be a great idea to bring the ladies back and have a great big passing out parade at Loftusveld. First time ever that the police had a passing out parade at Loftusveld. I know I've mentioned in my first conversation with you that my father wasn't very impressed with me being in the police force. He thought I lost my mind. But anyway, during the months after I left college first, things started improving. And my mom, especially this one is really for you. I think of you because my mother was the one who really, in the end, converted my father. And then a couple of days before the passing out parades, my father phoned me and he said to me, if you still want us there, we will come. I said, gee, Dad, of course I want you at the passing out parade. There's nothing more I want. It's for you to be at my passing out parade. I mean, the passing out parade is such a big thing in each and every student's life. That's a thing you never forget. And then came the big day. We were all taken to Loftusversfeld by buses in our beautiful uniforms, and everything was shining, our buttons, our shoes, our badges, the hats, and everywhere. It was so beautiful. And this is where I was caught undercover myself, because the day before the passing out parade, we decided, gee, no, we can't go to a passing out parade without having our hair done. Instead of just ask the Wienbota or Ansie now, the second in charge, they would have said yes. No, we've decided we're going to slip out of the college. Then we walk into the hairdresser, and the first person that we saw, whose face we saw in the mirror the moment when we walk into the hairdresser, was that of Auntie Nell. And there we were. She's already saw us. We can't just grab our stuff and run away. We made appointments and we just sat, and she even greeted us. And, oh, I tell you, within minutes after we got back in the college, we were called into Deveen's office. There was Deveen and Ansie. Deveen said to me, why didn't you just come to me and ask me? She said, for a thing like a passing out parade, I would never said no. But what you do today, it's unforgivable. But you're lucky. Tomorrow is your last day ever in the college. So actually, I can't really do anything to you. And she still said to me, well, by the way, your hair looks beautiful. What do I say? I mean, she was cross with us, but she was right. The next day was our last day, because after our passing out parade at Loftusversfeld, we all went our own way again. But the day at Loftus, now it seems to me there were thousands of people. They just poured in. The pavilions was packed. It's as if the whole of Pretoria were there. But you must keep in mind, it was all the men, and there was a lot of men and students there. And us 3 platoons, the women, so our family came. Yes. And I remember when we marched onto the Loftusversfeld grounds, the pavilion erupted. The people was applauded us. It gave me a feeling of, you know, I'm on the clouds. Nobody can do anything to bring me down. I was just so, and that all of us, you know, to us, it was just a best thing that could have even happened to us. But once again, in the back of our mind, the warning was there, you just stand up straight. I don't want to pick anyone up from the ground. You know what to do, not to get tired with your feet. And it was an extra long parade, because everybody in the police with generals or whatever had something to say about that day. And the minister had an extra long speech, but we made it. And when we marched out of Loftusversfeld once again, we had a standing ovation from the people that was there. And then, well, luckily my parents was waiting for me. I spent the weekend with them, and then they went back to the farm. I went back to my flat those days when I was working in Boksburg. I had a flat in Hillbrow. Hillbrow was a policeman's paradise. Those days, it was a wonderful place. It never shut down. It was open 24 hours a day. And we were a couple of friends that lived in different flats, blocks in Hillbrow. And it was nothing for us to phone each other at 11 o'clock and say, let's go have a pancake. There were places, little pancake bars in Hillbrow, which made the most beautiful pancakes, salty, sweetie, whatever you want. And we just walked there. There was nobody who ever even think that something could happen to us. With those good old days. But as I say, Hillbrow was a policeman's paradise. I travelled from Hillbrow to Boksburg every day for about 6 or 7 months, just a couple of months after our second passing out parade. I decided now it's because working as a detective meant I had to work at night times. Sometimes I was called out on short notice. So I got myself a flat in Boksburg. I lived there, which was Boksburg was a beautiful town those days. It became a city later on. And after a couple of years in detectives at Boksburg, I met up, well, sort of with one of my first cases. I met up with a state prosecutor. At first I thought that this guy is just, another guy. And the more we worked together, the more things between us became better. And eventually it turned out that he will become my husband. So then he got transferred to Germiston, and that's why we moved to Germiston. We lived in a flat for a couple of months, and then I started arranging my wedding, which was a beautiful day. It was really beautiful, except that when I got out of the car at church, one of the famous midday thunderstorms just poured down. Luckily, I just made it in the building before I was all wet, but I'll never forget that it was pouring while we were in the church. And one of the chaplains that was in our congregation when I was at college, he did my wedding ceremony. It was so beautiful. There was a lot of my police friends, and my father went out to really give me a fantastic wedding. That was really nice. And my surprise when I walked out of the church, the police in uniform formed me sort of a guard of honor, unofficially. That, it was so beautiful and so unexpected that I even started crying. And when we came back after our honeymoon, we both start at Germiston. At the Germiston branch, those days he was then Captain De La Rosa, who later on retired as a general. A guy who he asked so many questions just to make sure that he thinks I will be able to do the work. And I said to him at one stage, Captain, I know what to do. He said, yes, I know, but you're here to investigate fraud. And fraud is not an easy investigation. I said, well, I must admit, I haven't done a lot of fraud cases, but I'm all open to learn. Who's going to learn me, you or who? And I think everybody in that office helped me with what exactly is fraud. How do you investigate fraud investigation? Because there is a difference. But as the days go by, I just felt more and more part of that family. It feels to me that they were just waiting for me to join them. I know it's true, it sounds stupid, but that's the way it felt to me. As if that group of detectives in Germiston, in that building, they were just waiting for me just to join them, as they used to say, a member of the family. And a member of a family it really was, because I was the only lady there, and those men was prepared to do anything for me. There was never a moment that I was scared to ask them. Even General De La Rosa, he knew I could ask him anything. And then came the day, and this is where I'm going to end my visit to you today, that I found out that I was pregnant. That's my very, very first pregnancy. What a day. Oh my gosh. My child is 43 years old today. Thinking back to that day in the doctor's rooms, I still get tears in my eyes. I will never, ever forget that day. And when the rest of the office found out that I was pregnant, it was as if they wrapped me in cotton wool. They were too scared anything was going to happen to me. It was beautiful. It's really, my time at the Germiston detectives was absolutely fantastic. That wasn't the end of me in Germiston detectives, but as I say, for today, I think I've taken up enough time of you, but it's not farewell. I'll be back. So at this stage, I say, bye. See you later. Please take care. In the world we live today, please always keep one eye over your shoulder. And be so careful. We all know what's going outside. I hope you enjoyed this little conversation. I did. So have a nice day and till next time. Bye.
Well, Internet, with that introduction, knock knock, it's Sarie again. I thought to myself, let us leave it there. I cannot improve upon it. Sarie, this was again wonderful. It's a great story. And I know that there will be a few more episodes. And I thank you for that. All of you are welcome. All of you are important. Don't think you're not important. Come and tell us your story before it's too late. Until we meet again, God bless.